welcome to your sleep story. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Whatever this day was, however long it felt, however much it carried, it is behind you now, completely behind you. You made it through, and that is everything. So let's begin. Before I take you anywhere tonight, I want to count you down from 10 to 1. And as I count, I want you to allow yourself to sink just a little deeper into wherever you are right now. Feel the weight of your body. Feel what is beneath you, holding you. And with each number, just let go a little more. 10. Allow your eyes to close, gently, completely. There is nothing you need to see right now. 9. Feel your shoulders and let them drop as far as they want to go. 8. A slow breath in through the nose. 7. And all the way out. 6. Your hands. Feel them opening. Whatever you've been holding today, you can put it down now. 5. Your jaw is soft. Your face is soft. 4. Your legs are heavy, warm. 3. You're drifting, not asleep yet, but moving that way. 2. The day is behind you, completely and entirely behind you. 1. And now, tonight's sleep story, the relaxation. Before we go anywhere, I want to stay here with you for a moment. Just here, just now, because this moment, this exact moment right now, where you are lying in the quiet, deserves a little attention, a little kindness. Take a breath in for me, from the very bottom of the belly. Good. And let it go. And as you breathe out, I want you to imagine that everything you were carrying today, every worry, every unfinished thought, every heavy thing is just leaving with that breath, just drifting away. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be anything other than exactly what you are right now. A person who deserves rest. A person who deserves sleep. Because you do. You really do. Whatever happened today, however hard it felt, however much it carried, you made it through. You are here. And that is enough. That is more than enough. You are safe. And you are here. Bring your awareness gently to your feet now. Just notice them and allow them to soften. The toes uncurling, the arches releasing. All the small held tension of the day simply letting go. Let that softness travel upward, through the calves, through the knees, the thighs. All of it warm, all of it heavy, all of it resting now. Your lower back, your hips. Allow yourself to feel the surface beneath you taking your weight completely, fully. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. The earth has you. The quiet valley has you. The belly soft, the chest soft, the heart beating steadily as it always has, as it always will. Your shoulders dropping, your arms heavy and warm, your hands open and still, the neck long and loose, and your face, let the jaw go. Let the forehead smooth. Let the eyes be completely still behind their lids. There you are, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, completely soft, completely warm, completely at rest. You've done beautifully. Now, let me take you somewhere a single river runs quietly between two old villages, and a small striped barrier rests upright in the dark because no one needs it lowered tonight. And one church bell on one side of the water answers another church bell on the other. The way they have answered each other for longer than the border between them has even had a name. Come with me. The road to the border. Imagine a small road in Europe. It does not matter particularly which two countries it eventually connects. Borders like this one exist in dozens of places across the continent, in quiet valleys where mountains or rivers once made convenient lines for map makers and treaty writers. Lines that, on the ground, in the actual lived experience of the people who live along them, have never felt quite as firm or as meaningful as they look on any official map. The road descends gently through farmland and scattered orchards, the apple trees heavy with the last of the season's fruit, into a shallow river valley where two villages have grown over centuries to face each other across a modest stone bridge. Evening is settling. The light has gone soft and low, catching the undersides of clouds in pink and gold, the kind of evening light that makes ordinary stone houses look, for a few minutes, as though they are built from something warmer than stone at all. The road brings you down into the first of the two villages. Narrow streets, old houses, plastered walls in faded ochre and cream, shutters closed now against the cooling air. A small grocery, its lights still on, the last customer of the day stepping out with a loaf of bread under one arm. And ahead, the bridge, and beyond the bridge, close enough that you could call across it without raising your voice very much at all. The second village, nearly identical in its architecture, its narrow streets, its closed shutters, and yet, somehow, also distinctly different, the roofline pitched at a slightly different angle, the shutters painted a slightly different shade of green, small details that mark, even from this distance, the fact that you are looking at a different country entirely. You walk toward the bridge. The bridge, it is old, stone arched, built sometime in the 18th century, according to the small, weathered plaque set into its parapet. Though the crossing itself, in one form or another, first a ford, then a wooden span, finally this same stone structure, has existed for far longer than the bridge's own recorded date suggests. The river having needed crossing for as long as people have lived on both its banks. The river beneath it is modest, not wide, not deep, not dramatic in any way. Simply a quiet, steady current of clear water moving between low grassy banks. The kind of river that has never needed to announce its own importance. Content, instead, to simply continue flowing, season after season, regardless of which nations happen, at any given point in history, to claim its opposite shores. At the bridge's midpoint, a small stone marker, half sunk into the parapet's old mortar, indicates, in faded lettering on each face, the boundary itself, the precise, invisible line where one country's jurisdiction ends and the other's begins. A line that exists, in any meaningful physical sense, only in this one small marker, and in the official records held in two distant capital cities, neither of which feels, from here, especially relevant to the quiet business of crossing this bridge on an ordinary evening. A border post stands at the near end of the bridge. A small wooden booth, painted in the fading colors of the country you are about to leave, and a striped barrier arm, raised now, resting in its upright position against the darkening sky. A second, matching booth stands at the bridge's far end, painted in the slightly different colors of the country you are about to enter. Its own barrier arm likewise raised, likewise resting, unneeded, in the gathering dusk. Neither barrier has been lowered in years. This is, in its quiet way, the whole story of this particular border. The border post, the near booth on this side of the bridge, is occupied. A single figure sits inside it, a small lamp burning on the narrow desk before him, a battered radio playing very softly, tuned to some late evening program of quiet music that drifts faintly out through the booth's open window into the cooling evening air. His name is Joseph. He is 72 years old. He has manned this small border post, first as a young customs officer of 24, in the more formal decades when this crossing required real attention, real paperwork, real vigilance, and more recently, for these past many years, in a role that has become, gradually, and almost without anyone officially deciding it should, something closer to a caretaker's position than an enforcement one. The border itself, since both nations joined the same broader European arrangement decades ago, no longer requires the checks and stamps and careful scrutiny that once defined Joseph's working life. Goods and people cross freely now, at any hour, with no more formality than a friendly nod, if even that. But the post itself remains, and Joseph remains with it, his official duties reduced now to a kind of quiet, ceremonial presence. Someone available, should anyone ever genuinely need assistance. Someone who keeps the small booth tidy and the barrier arm in good working order, even though that arm has not been lowered, except for routine maintenance, since long before some of the village's youngest residents were even born. He sits in his booth most evenings, exactly as he sits there tonight, not because the work strictly requires it, but because the habit of 50 years has never quite felt worth abandoning, and because, in his own quiet way, he has come to feel a particular fondness for this small, unremarkable spot where two countries happen to meet. The first breath of the border, the smell of this place at this hour, is gentle and layered, carrying something of both villages at once. River water, first, the clean, mineral, faintly green smell of moving fresh water, carried up from beneath the bridge on whatever small current of evening air moves along the valley. Wood smoke, drifting from chimneys on both sides of the water. Someone on the near bank has lit an early evening fire against the autumn chill. Someone on the far bank has done the same, the two thin columns of smoke rising into the same darkening sky, indistinguishable by smell alone, as belonging to one country rather than the other. Bread from the small groceries ovens, the last warm loaves of the day, their fragrance carrying further on the still evening air than you might expect from a shop already closing for the night. And beneath all of this, the cooler, drier smell of stone, the old bridge itself, the village walls, the customs booths, all of it built from the same local quarried rock, regardless of which side of the river it happens to stand on. The stone itself, entirely indifferent to the political lines drawn across the land it was cut from. You breathe it in. It is, you might notice, simply the smell of an evening in this valley, not the smell of one country or the other, but of the place itself, the river and the stone and the wood smoke and the bread, all of it belonging equally to both banks at once. JOSEF's counterpart, across the bridge, in the matching booth on the far side, a second figure sits at his own small desk, his own small lamp burning. His name is Adrian. He is 68 years old, 4 years younger than Joseph, though the two of them have known each other for nearly 50 of those years, having taken up their respective posts on their respective sides of the bridge within a few years of each other, back when the border between their two countries still required the kind of careful daily attention that has long since become unnecessary. They have, across these 5 decades, developed a particular, easy friendship, the kind that grows naturally between two people who spend their working lives within shouting distance of each other, who share, in a sense neither ever needed to put into formal words, the same small patch of riverbank and bridge and quiet evening duty. Most evenings, like tonight, they call across the water to each other at some point. A few words exchanged in the particular mixture of both their languages that decades of proximity have taught them each to use comfortably. A kind of small private dialect understood, really, only by the two of them and by the handful of villagers on each bank who have grown used to overhearing it. Tonight, Joseph calls out first, a simple greeting, a comment about the mild evening, a question about whether Adrian's wife's recent cold has improved. Adrian calls back, his voice carrying easily across the narrow river in the evening's still air, confirming that yes, she is much better now, thank you, and asking, in turn, whether Joseph's daughter has called this week from the city where she now lives and works. She has, Joseph confirms. All is well. This is the whole content of their exchange. Most evenings, small, ordinary, unremarkable news, exchanged across a stretch of water that technically separates two sovereign nations, though in every practical sense, it separates nothing at all beyond a few footsteps distance and a low stone parapet. The two villages. Let me tell you a little about these two villages, because because their relationship to each other carries its own particular, gently complicated history. They were, for many centuries, simply one place, a single settlement that grew up around this river, crossing long before either of the modern nations that now claim opposite halves of it had even properly come into existence as distinct political entities. The border between them, when it was eventually drawn in some treaty negotiated by distant diplomats who likely never set foot in this particular valley at all, sliced directly through what had previously been a single, undivided community, separating families, in some documented cases, quite literally, by placing one sibling's house on one side of the new line and another sibling's house, perhaps 50 meters away, on the other. For much of the 20th century, depending on the particular political climate of any given decade, this division mattered enormously. Wars closed the border entirely for years at a stretch. Different political systems on each side, during certain particularly difficult periods, made even occasional family visits across the bridge a matter of considerable bureaucratic difficulty and occasional real danger. Joseph remembers some of this himself from his own childhood and early working years, a period when the barrier arm on his side of the bridge was lowered far more often than raised, when his own job carried a weight and a seriousness that bears little resemblance to the quiet, largely ceremonial role he occupies tonight. The gradual softening of this border across the decades since has been one of the genuine, quiet triumphs of his own long working life. Watching the barrier arm raised more and more often, watching families separated by the original treaty's careless line slowly regain easy access to relatives just across the water, watching, eventually, the whole apparatus of strict border control become, for this particular crossing at least, almost entirely unnecessary. The two villages these days function in many practical respects as a single community once again, sharing a single weekly market, held alternately on each bank, sharing, in recent years, a single small school for the area's younger children, the building itself standing, by careful and somewhat symbolic design, directly on the river's near bank, but serving children from both villages equally. The border remains, on official maps, exactly where the old treaty placed it, in the actual daily life of the people who live here. It has become something closer to a pleasant local curiosity than any genuine division. The church bells, as the evening deepens, a bell begins to ring from the church tower on the near bank, a simple, unhurried sequence of tones marking the hour, the same bell that has marked this same hour in one form or another since the church itself was first built centuries ago, when this whole valley was still a single undivided settlement. A few moments later, slightly delayed by the small distance across the water, a second bell answers from the church tower on the far bank, a slightly different tone, the bronze of this second bell cast in a different year, by a different founder, giving it its own distinct pitch, though the two bells together produce a kind of loose, overlapping harmony that the villagers on both banks have grown so accustomed to hearing that few of them, Joseph included, consciously notice it as remarkable anymore. He notices it tonight, though sitting in his small booth, the radio's quiet music momentarily fading into the background of his attention. As both bells finish their sequence and fall silent again, he has heard this exact small duet, first bell, then its answering counterpart, perhaps 20,000 times across his working life. He has never once found it anything other than quietly, reliably beautiful. Two bells cast in different decades, in different countries, by craftsmen who almost certainly never met each other or coordinated their work in any way, somehow producing together across this narrow stretch of water something that sounds every single evening like a kind of conversation. The weekly market. Let me tell you about the market that alternates between the two villages, because it offers, in its own modest way, one of the clearest small illustrations of how thoroughly this border has softened over the decades. On odd weeks, the market sets up its stalls in the near village's small central square, just a short walk from Joseph's booth. On even weeks, the same stallholders pack their goods, cross the bridge, and set up again in the far village's nearly identical square. The whole arrangement having evolved gradually across several decades into something the villagers on both sides simply consider normal, hardly worth remarking on. Farmers from both banks sell their produce side by side, regardless of which country's soil it happened to grow in. A baker from the near village has, for years now, supplied bread to both villages' households, her stall simply moving with the rest of the market across the bridge every other week. Her customers on both sides equally loyal, equally pleased with her particular recipe for the dark, dense rye bread that has become, in its own quiet way, something of a small local specialty. Joseph remembers a time in his younger working years when this kind of easy cross-border commerce would have required considerable paperwork, careful customs declarations, the kind of bureaucratic friction that, while perhaps necessary in its own historical moment, nonetheless made ordinary daily life along this border considerably more complicated than it has any need to be today. He is glad, in his quiet way, to have lived long enough to see this particular complication largely dissolve. The market continues, week after week, alternating banks, the two villages' produce and bread, and small handcrafted goods mingling freely, exactly as the two communities themselves have always, in some deeper sense, wanted to mingle, regardless of whatever line a distant treaty once drew between them. The river night. Let us return for a moment to the river itself, because it deserves your attention quite apart from the human history that has grown up along its banks. It flows, as it has flowed for longer than either village has existed, completely indifferent to the border that some long ago mapmaker decided should run, more or less, down its center. In the deepening evening light, its surface has gone dark and smooth, reflecting. Where the current allows enough stillness, the first faint stars beginning to appear in the sky above the valley. A heron stands motionless in the shallows near the near bank, waiting with the particular patient stillness that herons bring to their evening fishing, entirely unconcerned with whether the small fish it hopes to catch happen to be swimming at any given moment on one side of the invisible boundary or the other. The current moves steadily beneath the old stone bridge. The same quiet, continuous sound it has made for centuries, water finding its way around the bridge's old stone piers, smoothing them very slightly, year after year, exactly as Lorenzo's Italian fountains slowly smoothed the marble dolphins of his own garden grotto. The same patient, persistent work of moving water against stone, repeated in this quiet valley, exactly as it is repeated in countless other places across the world. The river does not know it is a border. It has simply continued flowing from higher ground to lower ground toward the distant sea for far longer than any nation along its banks has existed, and it will continue flowing, in all likelihood, for far longer than those same nations are likely to last in their current form. This thought has occurred to Joseph many times across his working life, sitting in his small booth beside this same patient water. He finds it, on the whole, rather comforting. What the border post teaches, Joseph has thought, across nearly 5 decades of evenings spent in this small booth, about what this particular work, if work is even still the right word for what his role has gradually become, has taught him. It has taught him, first, something about the difference between lines drawn on paper and the actual texture of a place as it is lived in, day after day, by the people who call it home. The border exists. He does not deny this, has never denied this, has spent considerable portions of his working life enforcing it in earlier decades, when enforcement genuinely mattered. But he has also watched, across 50 years, how thoroughly a line on a map can soften in practice when the people living along it simply continue, patiently, stubbornly, to treat each other as neighbors rather than as representatives of opposing nations, sharing markets, sharing schools, calling cheerful greetings across a narrow stretch of water every single evening, regardless of whatever larger political currents happen to be moving through the distant capitals that technically govern their lives. The post has also taught him something about the particular value of simply remaining present, even when the original urgent purpose of your presence has largely faded. He could have requested reassignment years ago to some busier crossing. Somewhere his more formal customs skills might have found more active use. He chose instead to remain here in this quiet booth beside this quiet river, partly from simple attachment to a place he has come to love across 5 decades, but partly too from a quiet conviction that there is real value in maintaining a steady, familiar reassuring presence at a border crossing, even especially when that crossing has become, by any practical measure, almost entirely peaceful. Someone should be here, he has come to believe, not because anything dramatic is likely to happen, but because the simple fact of someone being here, night after night, year after year, is itself a kind of quiet reassurance to the villagers on both banks. A small, steady, human presence marking this place where two nations meet, ensuring that whatever happens here, large or small, happens within sight of someone paying careful, patient attention. The evening DAPNS. The light has gone now, almost entirely. The last traces of color fading from the western sky above the valley's low hills. Joseph's small lamp burns steadily in his booth, casting its warm, modest light out through the open window, and a short distance onto the bridge's stone parapet. Across the water, Adrian's matching lamp does the same. The two small points of warm light the most prominent visible features along the darkening riverbank. Two quiet beacons marking, more clearly than any official signage could, exactly where this evening's two longtime keepers of this small, mostly symbolic border continue their gentle, undemanding watch. A car passes over the bridge, unhurried, its headlights briefly illuminating both booths in turn as it crosses, the driver offering a small wave to Joseph, and then, a few seconds later, to Adrian, the kind of casual acknowledgement that has become, over the decades, simply part of the ordinary courtesy of using this particular crossing. Neither Joseph nor Adrian needs to check the car's papers. There is, in any meaningful sense, nothing left to check. The driver could be coming from either village, going to either village, carrying nothing more remarkable than groceries or a visit to family. The kind of small, unremarkable cross-border journey that happens on this bridge dozens of times every single evening, exactly as it has happened for years now, without incident, without complication, without any need for the formal vigilance that once defined this crossing's entire purpose. The car's taillights fade into the near village's narrow streets. The evening settles back into its quiet, familiar rhythm. The small cafe, just up from the nearside booth, on the small square that fronts the village church, a modest cafe keeps its lights on a little later than the rest of the village's shops, serving the last few customers of the evening. A handful of older villagers playing cards at a corner table, a young couple sharing a late coffee, the cafe's owner, a woman named Margit, moving between tables with the easy, practiced attentiveness of someone who has run this same small establishment for over 20 years. Joseph takes his own evening coffee here most nights, when his booth's quiet duties allow him a short break, walking the few steps from his post to the cafe's warm, lamplit interior, exchanging a few words with Margit and with whichever villagers happen to be present, before returning to his post to finish out the evening. He is there now, in fact, his booth left briefly unattended in the relaxed, trusting way that decades of peaceful borders eventually permit. nothing requiring his immediate presence tonight. The small barrier arm resting, as always, in its raised position, the bridge itself open and quiet in the deepening dark. Margit brings him his coffee, strong and dark. In the same chipped blue cup, she has served it in for as long as he can remember, along with a small, unhurried bit of village news: whose roof needs repair, whose grandchild is visiting from the city, whose cow on the far bank gave birth to twins just this morning. The small, ordinary, cross-border gossip of two villages that have, in every meaningful sense, simply become one again. He drinks his coffee slowly. He will return to his booth shortly, resume his quiet evening watch, exchange a final few words with Adrian before the night grows too late and quiet for further conversation. But for now, he sits, warm and unhurried, in Margit's small cafe, exactly as he has sat here on countless similar evenings for more years than he could easily count. The school on the riverbank, a short walk from both the cafe and the bridge, stands the small school that serves children from both villages. Its modest building standing, as mentioned, on the near bank, but drawing pupils each morning from both sides of the water. At this hour, the school is dark and quiet, its day's work long finished, but Joseph often glances toward it on his evening walks between his booth and Margit's cafe, finding in its dark windows a particular small satisfaction. The school was built some 15 years ago now, after years of careful negotiation between the two villages' separate municipal governments. A genuinely complicated bureaucratic undertaking, requiring both nations' education ministries to agree to an arrangement that on paper must have seemed unusually complicated. Children officially residing in one country, attending school daily in the other. But the two villages' residents wanted this badly enough. After generations of maintaining separate small schools, each two modestly sized to offer their children the fuller range of subjects and activities a single larger school could provide, that they pursued the arrangement patiently for years, until it was finally, against some real institutional resistance, approved. The children themselves, Joseph has noticed, across the 15 years since the school opened, seem to find the whole arrangement almost entirely unremarkable. Crossing the bridge each morning, in mixed groups from both villages, chatting easily in whatever combination of both local languages and dialects has become, among their generation specifically, an entirely natural and unself-conscious form of everyday speech. They do not think of themselves, particularly, as crossing a border each morning. They think of themselves, mostly, simply as walking to school, the bridge itself having become, for this youngest generation growing up along this particular stretch of river, less a boundary than simply the most convenient, most ordinary possible route between home and the place where their friends are. Joseph finds this, watching the children's easy morning crossings each day. Perhaps the most hopeful single thing His long working life beside this border has shown him. Adrian's evening, across the bridge, in his own small booth. Adrian continues his own quiet evening, much as Joseph continues his. He has brought, tonight, a small portable chess set and is working slowly through a game against himself. A habit he developed years ago during the longer, quieter stretches of evening duty, a way of passing the patient hours with something more engaging than simple waiting. His wife, Lenka, the same woman whose recent cold Joseph inquired after earlier this evening, will have his supper waiting when his own shift ends, in a small house just a short walk from his booth, in the far village's quiet, narrow streets. He thinks of her now, and then, across the evening's long, quiet stretches, the way a person naturally thinks of someone waiting for them at the end of a long, unhurried day. He thinks, too, sometimes, of his own father, who held a very similar post on the same bridge's far side, decades earlier, during a period when the border's significance was considerably more serious, more fraught than anything Adrian himself has needed to navigate across his own calmer working decades. His father did not live to see the border soften as thoroughly as it eventually has died. In fact, several years before the wider political changes that gradually transformed this crossing from a genuinely tense national boundary into the quiet, friendly, largely symbolic arrangement Adrian now tends. Adrian sometimes wishes his father could have seen this, could have seen the children walking easily across the bridge each morning to their shared school, could have seen the market alternating peacefully between both villages' squares, could have seen Adrian and Joseph themselves, two men from officially separate nations, calling cheerful evening greetings to each other across water that, in every meaningful practical sense, no longer truly separates anything at all. He moves a chess piece, considers his own next move carefully, and continues his patient, solitary game. The sound of the valley, 18 night. If you were to stand right now at the center of the old stone bridge, exactly above the small marker that indicates the official boundary, this is what you would hear. The river beneath you, its steady, unhurried current moving around the bridge's old stone piers, the same quiet, rushing sound it has made for centuries. The two churches' bells, fallen silent now until the next hour calls them to their brief duet once more. A dog, somewhere in the near village, barking once or twice at something of passing interest before falling quiet again. The faint, distant murmur of conversation drifting from Margit's cafe, where the last few evening customers continue their unhurried card game and quiet talk. A radio, very faintly, from Adrian's booth across the water. The same kind of soft evening music that plays, just as faintly, from Joseph's own radio on the near side. Two nearly identical small sounds drifting toward each other across the narrow river, meeting, perhaps, somewhere near this very spot where you are standing. at the exact invisible line where one country's air becomes another's. The wind, gentle tonight, moving through the orchards on the hillsides above both villages, carrying the faint, lingering smell of ripe apples down toward the valley floor. And beneath all of this, the small, steady, comfortable silence of a border crossing that has, after decades of softening, finally become exactly what Joseph has always quietly hoped it might become. Simply a bridge, simply a river, simply two villages, sharing one quiet, unremarkable evening. The old customs house, records. Inside Joseph's booth, beneath the narrow desk, a locked drawer holds a small collection of old ledgers. The formal customs records his post was once required to keep. Decades of entries documenting every cart, every truck, every traveler who once needed to be logged, inspected, sometimes questioned, before being permitted to cross. He rarely opens this drawer anymore. The records themselves stopped mattering in any practical sense years ago, once the formal border checks ended. But he has never quite found it in himself to discard them, the way Elisabetta in her Florence studio has never discarded the old guest books from her own restoration work, the way Tanaka-san on his Hokkaido hillside has never discarded a single one of his 15 years of visitors' books. Tonight, with little else to occupy the quiet stretch between Margit's closing and his own eventual end of shift, he takes the drawer's oldest ledger down and opens it briefly beneath his small lamp. The handwriting inside is his own, from nearly 50 years ago, careful, formal, recording dates and names, and the particular goods being transported. A cart of timber on one date, a small shipment of cheese on another, a young couple crossing for their wedding, their names duly recorded alongside the modest customs duty Joseph, as a young man barely out of his 20s, was required at the time to collect. He recognizes some of these names still. Children of the people listed here, grandchildren even, still live in both villages today, still cross this same bridge freely, their own names requiring no formal record at all anymore. The entire elaborate bureaucratic apparatus his younger self once carefully maintained, having simply, gradually, become unnecessary. He does not feel any particular grief over this. If anything, paging through these old entries by lamplight, he feels something closer to quiet satisfaction. Proof, in his own careful, decades-old handwriting, of exactly how much this border has softened across his working lifetime. A written record of the slow, patient transformation he has had the good fortune to witness from this same small booth. He closes the ledger. He returns it to its drawer. He locks the drawer again, not because anyone might want what is inside it, but simply because this, too, is part of his own small evening ritual, performed the same careful way it has been performed for decades. The orchard above the valley, on the hillside above the near village, the apple orchards that supply much of the valley's small autumn harvest stand quiet now in the deepening dark, their rows running in long, even lines up the gentle slope. The last of the season's fruit still hanging heavy on many of the branches. These orchards, like so much else in this valley, predate the border itself by a considerable margin, planted generations ago, tended across the decades by families whose land holdings, in several documented cases, were themselves split by the treaty line. A single family's orchard ending up, after the border was drawn, with some rows officially in one country and the remaining rows in the other. This created, in the early decades after the border's establishment, a number of small but genuine difficulties. Questions of which country's agricultural taxes applied to which trees, disputes over harvest rights that occasionally required formal mediation, the kind of petty, frustrating bureaucratic tangle that borders drawn without much attention to existing land use so often produce. Most of these old disputes have long since been resolved quietly through decades of informal local accommodation, and eventually through the same broader political softening that has transformed the bridge crossing itself. The orchards today are tended, in practice, much as a single family's land would be tended anywhere, without much regard for which specific row happens to fall on which side of an old, largely theoretical line. The apples themselves, picked each autumn, are sold at the same alternating weekly market, regardless of which country's particular rows happened to produce them. The fruit itself, like the river, entirely unconcerned with the political geography its trees happen to occupy. Tonight, the orchards rest in darkness and silence, the apples continuing their last days of quiet ripening, the whole hillside holding, in its patient way, the accumulated history of a piece of land that has belonged, depending on which decade and which treaty you consult, to one country, then briefly disputed between two, then finally, comfortably, to both at once, in the easy, practical way that working farmland tends to settle such questions regardless of what any official map insists. The night fisherman, further along the riverbank, beyond the bridge, a single figure sits patiently on a low folding stool, a fishing line extended quietly into the dark current, a small lantern beside him casting just enough light to see his tackle by. This is old Bertrand, a retired farmer from the near village, who has fished this same stretch of river most clear evenings for as long as Joseph can remember, his own quiet routine running parallel to Joseph's. The two men's evenings overlapping for decades, without either one needing the other's company particularly. Simply two familiar, comfortable presences along the same stretch of riverbank. Bertrand fishes, by his own cheerful admission, with considerably more patience than skill. The modest trout this river holds are not easily fooled, and his evening catches, across the years, have been more often nothing at all than anything substantial enough for supper. But he comes anyway, most evenings, less for the fish themselves than for the particular quality of stillness this riverside spot offers. The water moving steadily past, the bridge's two small lamps glowing softly upstream, the occasional murmur of Joseph and Adrian's evening exchange carrying faintly down the bank toward him. He does not fish on the far bank, though the river there offers, by most accounts, equally promising water. He has simply always fished from this particular spot, on this particular bank, a habit formed decades ago and never seriously questioned since, though he would be the first to admit, with his easy, unbothered laugh, that the fish themselves have never shown any similar national loyalty, swimming freely back and forth across the invisible boundary, running down the river's center without the slightest concern for which country's water they currently occupy. Tonight, his line sits quiet in the dark current, no bite yet, though he does not seem particularly troubled by this. He simply waits patiently in the gathering dark, content with the river's steady company and the distant, comfortable sound of Joseph's radio drifting down from the bridge. The shared language. There is one more small thing about this valley worth telling you, because it captures, perhaps better than anything else, just how thoroughly the border here has softened over the generations. The two villages officially speak two different national languages, the kind of difference that, on paper, in any government document, marks a clean and obvious distinction between the two communities. But the actual speech you would hear, walking through either village's streets on an ordinary evening, tells a more complicated and more interesting story. Generations of close contact, intermarriage, shared schooling, and simple daily proximity have produced, across this particular stretch of border, a local dialect that blends both languages so thoroughly that linguists from the region's universities have, on several occasions, traveled out to this valley specifically to study it, finding in the villagers' everyday speech a living record of exactly how borders, given enough patient time, can blur in ways no treaty ever anticipated. Joseph and Adrian's own evening exchanges, called back and forth across the water, exist almost entirely within this blended local speech. A sentence beginning in one language and finishing, quite naturally, in the other. Individual words borrowed so thoroughly from each side that most villagers, including the two old border keepers themselves, could not easily say any more which language any particular word originally belonged to. The children at the shared school speak this same blended dialect among themselves, their teachers gently encouraging, alongside it, fluency in both official national languages, so that the children grow up equally comfortable in three forms of speech at once: their own valley's particular hybrid tongue, and the two more formal national languages that exist for them, mostly as something used for school books and for conversations with visiting relatives from further away. Joseph finds a particular, quiet pleasure in this linguistic blending, more than in almost any other single aspect of how this border has softened across his lifetime. A line on a map can be redrawn eventually, by distant politicians, in ways no one in this valley would have any say over, but a shared language, grown organically across generations of ordinary daily contact, is something no treaty could ever simply legislate away. It belongs, entirely and irreversibly, to the people who actually speak it. The late hour, it grows later. Margit's cafe finally closes for the night. Its last few customers wandering home through the near village's narrow streets. Margit herself extinguishing her lights and locking her door with the same unhurried, practiced motion she has used for over 20 years of closing this same small cafe. The children of both villages are long since asleep in their respective homes. Tomorrow morning's shared walk to school still some hours away. The market stalls, wherever this particular week's market happens to be set up, stand quiet and empty, waiting for tomorrow's business, or, depending on the week's rotation, for the slow work of dismantling and crossing the bridge to set up again on the opposite bank. Joseph finishes his coffee, exchanges a final few words with Margit before she closes, and walks the short distance back to his booth, settling once more into his familiar chair, his small lamp still burning steadily, his radio's soft music still drifting quietly into the cooling night air. Across the water, Adrian continues his own patient chess game, glancing up occasionally at the dark shape of the bridge, at Joseph's small, steady light on the opposite bank, at the river moving quietly between them, indifferent, as it always has been, to whatever names or boundaries the two men's distant governments have, across the centuries, assigned to its two banks. The barrier arms. Let me return for a final moment to the two striped barrier arms, the one on Joseph's side, the one on Adrian's, both of them resting, as they have rested for years now, in their raised, upright position, unneeded, essentially ceremonial. A quiet visual reminder of a border crossing that decades of patient peace have rendered almost entirely symbolic. Joseph checks his own arm occasionally, as part of his routine duties, ensures the mechanism remains in good working order, oils its hinges when needed, repaints its faded stripes every few years when the weather has worn them sufficiently. Not because he expects to ever genuinely need to lower it, but because maintaining it properly feels, to him, like its own small act of respect. The arm represents something real, even now, even in its largely unused state. The formal fact of two separate nations, two separate sets of laws and currencies and histories, meeting here at this particular bridge. But its raised position, night after night, year after year, represents something equally real, and to Joseph's mind, considerably more important. The choice, renewed continuously by both nations, and by the two small communities living along this border, to keep that arm raised, to let the bridge remain open, to let two villages that were, centuries ago, simply one place, continue functioning in practice, as something very close to one place once again. He looks at his own arm now, resting quietly against the darkening sky, its faded stripes barely visible in the gathering dark. He finds in its stillness, its raised, unused, deliberately unnecessary position, a particular and reliable comfort. You are drifting. You are still on the bridge, or somewhere very near it, the river moving quietly beneath you, the two small lamplit booths glowing warm on either bank, the two old church towers standing silent now, until the next hour calls their bells to answer each other once more. The barrier arms rest upright, unneeded, exactly as they have rested for years. The children of both villages sleep soundly. Tomorrow's shared walk to school, still some hours away. Joseph and Adrian continue their quiet, patient watch, each in his own small booth, each glancing, now and then, toward the other's steady light across the water. All of it here, all of it holding you. Your breathing has slowed to match the river's own unhurried current, steady, continuous, moving always toward something larger, something further along, without ever needing to rush to get there. This is what a quiet border crossing like this one teaches, if you allow yourself to receive it, even only in imagination, even only for this one quiet hour before your own sleep arrives. That lines, even real ones, even ones with long and sometimes difficult histories, can soften, given enough patient time and enough people on both sides willing to treat each other simply as neighbors. That watchfulness does not require tension, that a person can stand guard faithfully for decades, at a post that asks, in the end, mostly for their calm, steady, reassuring presence, rather than for any dramatic vigilance. You do not need to guard anything tonight. You can simply rest, the way this whole valley rests. 2 villages and 1 river, and 2 small steady lamps, all of it quiet, all of it at peace, all of it held gently between 2 old church bells that will, in their own good time, answer each other again. The last things, the bridge stands quiet in the dark, its old stone holding the day's last warmth slowly into the cooling night. The river moves steadily beneath it, indifferent, as always, to the boundary drawn across its surface by some long-ago treaty. The 2 booths glow softly on their opposite banks. Joseph's small lamp, Adrian's small lamp, 2 steady points of warm light marking, more clearly than any signage, exactly where 2 countries meet. The barrier arms rest upright, unneeded, their faded stripes barely visible in the dark. The 2 church towers stand silent, waiting for the next hour, when their bells will answer each other once more, exactly as they have answered each other for as long as anyone in either village can remember. The market stalls wait, on whichever bank this week's rotation has settled them, for tomorrow's business, or for next week's patient crossing to the other side. The small shared school stands dark and quiet on the near bank, waiting for tomorrow morning's mixed, easy crossing of children from both villages, walking together, unself-conscious, toward a single shared classroom. Margit's cafe is dark now, its door locked, its lights extinguished, waiting for tomorrow's first early coffee customer. Joseph sits in his booth. Adrian sits in his. The river continues flowing between them, toward the distant sea, exactly as it always has, exactly as it always will. The bridge is quiet. The river moves steadily beneath it, toward the distant sea, as it always has. The two booths glow softly, two small, steady lights on two opposite banks. The barrier arms rest upright, unneeded, patient, raised. The church bells are silent now, waiting for the next hour, when they will answer each other again. The market stalls are quiet, waiting for tomorrow or for next week's crossing. The school is dark, waiting for tomorrow's children, walking together easily across the water. Margit's cafe is locked for the night. Joseph is in his booth. Adrian is in his, each one watching his own small, steady light, each one glancing, now and then, toward the other, across the narrow water. You are held tonight too, by this same quiet, patient watch, by two small, steady lamps, glowing gently on opposite banks, by a river that has never once needed to choose a side. You do not need to guard anything tonight. You only need to rest, the way this whole valley rests. Two villages, one river, one long, unhurried, ordinary peace. You are safe. You are warm. You are held on the bridge between the two countries. In the quiet, settled dark, the barrier will stay raised all night. The river will keep flowing. And you can simply rest. Good night, dear friend. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Good night, and